focusing on health, education, and environment. As a part of our education initiative for youth, we have organized today's session. For today's session, we have really esteemed panel of speakers with us. So as we know that serving in the armed forces has always been a popular career option, but often very little is known about this option and the steps involved. So I'm sure that today's session will go a long way in understanding how you may go about it, achieving this dream. So without further delay, let me introduce the speakers for today's session. So the first speaker for today's session is Mrs. Shilpa Khare. She has done her MBA, B.Ed, Diploma in Electronics and Teleengineering, Diploma in Medical Transcription. She is a writer, a poet, an anchor, a linguist. She has served 20 years in army schools all over India, and her husband and her son are serving in the army officers and serving in the army. So over to you, Shilpa ma'am.
Shilpa, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Good evening and namaskar. We have joined in this webinar here to know about the career in Defense Forces or Merchant Navy. Today, my aim is to acquaint you with the career prospects and recruitment procedure in the Army. First, let us know what is the role of Indian Army. It has primary and secondary role. Primary role is to protect national interests, sovereignty, territorial integrity, unity of India against external threats, even if required by waging war. Secondary role, to defend the nation against internal threats, assist the government when requisitioned, and provide aid to the civil authorities. Now in this slide, you can see the various arms, services, and corps which are shown in the slide. Can you show the slides? Third slide. Third slide, please. Yes, fine. One can join the army as an officer or JCO or other ranks. We know there is a massive shortage of officers in Indian Army. Next slide, please. Fifth slide. One can join the army as an officer or JCO or other ranks. We know there is a massive shortage of officers in Indian Army. Can you think about what can be the reasons for this shortage? The main reasons are misinformation or lack of information about few factors. Number one is casualties. Do you know in Kargil war in 60 days, where all types of weapons were used by our enemy, total army fatalities were approximate 525. Compared to that, deaths due to the only the road accidents in India were many times of this number in this period. No studies in armed forces, which is totally wrong. For professional growth and to remain updated, training in the army is a continuous and unending process. About job content, pay package along with the other benefits, and about anxiety of unsettled family life, you will know as I move ahead during this talk. Next slide, please. Important factors about life in the army is given. Action. Life of army, people is in life of army, people are full of action, whether you are posted in field or peace station. No 2 days are ever same. Professional growth, it is ensured by continuous training so as to keep the knowledge and skill levels up to date. Adventure. Army man doesn't have to pay for adventure. Many times their routine tasks are what we in civil call as adventure. Example, mountain or rock climbing, staying in the tents, trekking through jungle, etc. They also take part in various professional adventure activities such as rowing, gliding, water sports, driving rallies, etc. travel. Army person has to travel throughout his service for his job, not only in India, but outside India too, which gives opportunity to enjoy sightseeing, learning, and knowing newer things at each location. Lifestyle. We in armed forces believe in enjoying life whenever possible. Hence, we have ample occasions to have good lifestyle. We believe in living the life king size. Family. This organization guarantees security of family even when the breadwinner is not around. There are various facilities available to ensure one can look after his or her family in all manners. Status. This profession gives respect to you and your family always and everywhere. Achievers. The list of achievers from army background in many fields is unending. From sports, adventure, entertainment, administration, entrepreneur, and so on. Next slide. Just an example of, this slide is just an example of how army looks after the education of wards of army personnel. This is the list of professional institutions where 80% or more than that the seats are reserved for wards of serving or retired army personnel. It covers nearly all types of fields. Next slide. This slide shows you basic pay and military service pay of officers just to show that after 7th pay commission, pay package of armed forces personnel is sufficient to provide comfortable life and facilities to the family. Next slide, please. Service benefits. This slide shows you the service benefits in various service benefits which are available other than the normal pay and allowances. It's entitled ration and not the free ration. While in service and also after the retirement, medical treatment, canteen facility, insurance cover, etc. 60 days of annual leave and 20 to 30 days of casual leave every year and study leave up to 2 years with full pay and allowances for those who are interested. Sorry. For those who are interested seeking higher education. A free rail warrant every year. Death cum retirement gratuity are few of the things. Profession of arms is the only job with pension. Rest other jobs you have to buy the pension. Slide 11, please. How do we join as officer? For most of the entries, there is a written exam. Shortlisted candidates are called for SSB interview, which can last for 5 days. Successful candidates are sent for medicals. Merit list is prepared from candidates who clear the medicals. Next slide.
This slide.
Slide 12. Just go in the behind,
Yes,
but previous slide. Yes. How do we join as an officer? For most of the entries, there is this slide shows those who are interested can apply under these entries. There are 2 entries after 10+2, technical entry and NDA. For graduates, there are 2 types of entries, that is permanent commission and short service commission. There are technical entries and there are special entries for women candidates too. In next slide, you can see some entries, time of notification in newspapers, eligibility criteria, and training location and duration. We can go for slide number 14. This shows details of remaining entries for men. You may be qualified in any field. There is chance of job in army. Next slide. gives details of various entries for women. For officers, lady officers. Recruitment for junior commissioned officers and other ranks is covered in the next few slides. Next slide. Problems faced in this recruitment are again due to lack of information and myths about paying bribe to recruiting staff or some tout or agent for selection. This is not possible due to introduction of computers, biometrics, etc. The selection process is absolutely fair. Next slide. Next slide. This slide shows the procedure of recruitment rallies. It is an open rally. Can you show the next slide, please? Open rally system? Yeah, correct. This slide shows procedure of recruitment rallies. It is an open rally system. Online registration is done first. On the allotted day, the candidate has to go with a printout of registration intimation, original documents, and few attested copies of the documents. List of physical tests are conducted is given in the slide. Physical measurements such as height, weight, chest are taken. There is medical submission of documents and verification. Those who get through all these checks are called for written exams. This is on OMR sheet and paper checking is done by the computers. The results are compiled by a barcode allotted to each candidate and not by his name. Next slide. In this next slide, you can see different categories of recruitment, required qualification, physical standards, and age, etc. And this is for Jawan. Can we have next slide, please? In next slide, you can see that in Army, there is a scope for anyone who is interested, deserving, and passionate. Whether one is 8th pass or 12th or graduate or catering courses or BA. Next slide. Next slide shows the dispensation. There are dispensation in educational qualification, age, or physical standards for candidates from few castes, regions, and communities, etc. Those, for example, those who hailing from hilly area have it for height. Dispensation are available for wards of serving or retired personnel, wards of widow or war widows, NCC cadets, and sports person also. Next slide. Here you can see the documents required to be carried and submitted during the recruitment. Next slide. These are the website where you can get the information about recruitment of all posts in Army. On AFMC site, you will get information about MBBS at AFMC or nursing degree. For all other posts, information is available on Join Indian Army site. There are various drop-down menus which gives all information and introduction about qualification, timeline, notification, procedures to be followed, schedule for upcoming recruitment rallies, etc. Please note down this slide so that you can visit the site. Thank you so much for patiently listening and showing interest to know about the armed forces and willingness to join the profession of arms. Wish you all the best for your future endeavor. Thank you.
Manisha? Manisha, we cannot hear you.
Yes. Now we have, now I have been unmuted. Thank you, ma'am. That was really a very informative session. And so we will be now moving on to our next speaker of the day. So the next speaker of the day today we have is Captain Subhendu Hati. So he is the Dean of Nautical Studies, Samudra Institute of Maritime Studies. He is graduated in Nautical Science from Training Ship Rajendra, Mumbai in 1992. After completion of training, he sailed primarily on container ships and bulk carriers of all sizes and ascending ranks. He was one of the earliest in his batch to clear the master, that's FG, certification of competency examinations and took over command in the year 2000 on a Cape-sized bulk carrier. He has a sailing experience of 14 years, of which the last 6 years as a captain. He took up training as a career in 2006, and within years, he established himself as one of the finest maritime pre-sea trainer. He is also an MBA in education management. As a pre-sea trainer, he has touched the lives of more than 1,300 seafarers at their budding stage. So over to you, Captain.
Thank you, madam. Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the organizers and thanks to all the participants who have come in such a huge number. Thanks to my earlier speaker, Ms. Silpa Khare. That was a wonderful presentation on how to join armed forces. And believe me, I also had a dream to join the armed forces, but could not make it. So I thought that if there is something else where I can still wear a uniform, and so that's why I came to the Merchant Navy. So I will now show you a presentation on basically this industry, which is not very well known. At the same time, it's a kind of a silent industry, and there is a huge amount of job opportunities for the young students who are passing out after 12th, or even who have done graduations in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering. So my presentation will be mostly focusing on tell you or introduce you to the shipping industry and water merchant ships. And then I'll be speaking to you about a career in the Merchant Navy. And at the end, only 1 or 2 slides I will show you about my institute. So here we go. So you see the shipping industry, it's a very kind of an international industry. When I say international industry, it is like this, that these merchant ships, I'm very soon going to show you their sizes and their types and all. They are all over the world in all the oceans. They are owned by an owner who may be from Japan, and they may be manned by people, or people working on them can be Indians or Indonesians. And the person who has booked the ship for carrying his cargo can be from Europe, and the cargo might be going to Australia, and the ship might be insured by a company in US. So you can see the entire world is involved in the shipping industry, and therefore we call it a truly global or international industry. It is there is also a huge employment opportunity. Previously, sometimes back in the 60s and 70s, the Merchant Navy was dominated by Europeans. But then very soon, say in the 70s, 80s, the Indian officers especially, they proved their worth. They proved their worth, and very soon, the Indian officers took over large number of ships, So there are Indian officers and ships belonging to the Americans, belonging to the US, I mean, to Europe, Europeans, belonging to the Japanese. What I'm trying to say is the Indian officers are preferred lot among officers from all over the world, because we have certain qualities which we will discuss with you in the coming slides. Uh, you'll be surprised to know that whatever cargo you can see on, being carried on the roads, you have a highway near your place, or say, you have seen trains carrying 60 to 70 compartments of goods trains. You'll be surprised to know that it is only 10% of how much cargo is being moved in the world. 90% of the global cargo is moved by ships only. So it is very, very economic. It is very, very economic. It is it also generates the least amount of greenhouse gases, if I say per ton of cargo. So very environment friendly as well. And there is a saying that without the shipping industry, the half the world will be starving and half the world will go to darkness. I'll explain you what it is. See, the resources in all over the world are not uniformly distributed. Where you get fuel, you don't have food. And you go to the Gulf countries, it's all desert. So they have a lot of oil, but they don't have food, so they need food. Where we have plenty of agriculture and vegetations and all, you don't have fuel there. So somebody has to bring the fuel from the Gulf country. So without the shipping industry, half the world will starve and half the world will go into darkness. Anyway, it is also one of the two most regulated industry in the world. When I say regulated, I mean to say regulations from the point of view of safety, from the point of view of pollution prevention, from the point of view of security. Of course, few years back, we had some security issues, but they're all. We have, pages or pages of regulations to make your ship the safest. So those days are gone where shipping, the people who goes to ship and their people back at home used to worry whether his son or his, family members will be safe on ship or not. Well, ships do not sink often like, what we used to think or we still think. They are very strongly built. They are built under strict regulations and they are very, very safe. I remember sometimes back, in a Times magazine, they asked which is the most safest place on the earth. And, this thing came, the answer came that one of the safest place in the earth, on the earth is a LNG carrier, a LNG carrier ship. LNG is liquid, natural gas. It is methane. Methane is carried at a temperature of minus 163 centigrade. So it is cryogenic temperature. At the same time, it is explosive. But even then, why they call a LNG carrying ship the most safe place on the earth? That is because of the regulations under which they are built. There are a lot of backups. There are a lot of what I should say, safety arrangements. There are a lot of risk assessments done to ensure that there are no accidents. Now, what do ships carry? Well, the answer is they carry anything to everything. Okay. Anything to everything. Whatever you need them to carry, they carry. So on the left-hand side, on the top, we have a container ship. It carries normally finished products. Okay, we want to send some bikes somewhere. You want to send some garments somewhere. You want to export some, some toys somewhere. There are the container ships who can pack them in boxes, standard size boxes. We call them containers, and they can take it across the oceans. That particular ship, which you can see, can carry about, you won't believe, it can carry about nothing less than 10 to 14,000 such boxes. On the right-hand side top, I have got something called a bulk carrier. It carries bulk cargo. Bulk cargo in the sense coal, iron ore, cement, grain, all this. And again, here we do not talk in kilos, we talk in tons, right? 1 ton is 1,000 kilograms. Then on the left-hand side bottom, you have a LNG carrier. I already told you about LNG. This particular ship must be carrying around 80,000 tons of LNG. Each tank is about 20,000 tons. So there are 4 such tanks. And just to give you a comparison, the cylinder which your mother is using at home must be, say, 15 kilos. So you can imagine how many such cylinders will fit on this ship. On the right-hand side bottom, this is a crude oil carrier. And these fellows are massive. They can go up to 4 lakh tons also, the largest of them. And they carry huge amount of crude oil from wherever it is produced to wherever they are needed. Okay. Coming to the something about the size of a ship. Okay, so here I have, this is not the biggest ship. This is one of the biggest ship, I can say. So I have got some comparison for you. So let us start from the left-hand side. So you can see he has given you the width of a soccer field on the top, 65 meters. That's the length of the soccer field. And this ship is almost 65 meters wide. It is taller than the Eiffel Tower, which is 362 meters in length, right? If you see in the bottom, it is written 1,70,000 ton. So it can carry 1,70,000 ton of cargo. That small one. The big one can carry 4 lakh tons of cargo, right? And there are so many other things given, other data given, which you can see from the figure, and some more pictures for you of one of those ships, the bigger one. So what you see is, this ship is driven by a propeller which is 10.3 meters tall. There is a comparison of human being standing beside it. Then it has got 7 cargo holds, each of a size of a tennis court, where you put the cargo. You can see the covers on the top. Its height is 30 meters, which is almost like a 10-story building. Its average speed, of course, is pretty slow. It's 28 kilometers per hour, but it is carrying 4 lakh tons of cargo. So there is the catch. But then you can see that it is operated by only 22 people. So must be very, very competent and very highly qualified, very practical in their approach. So the next question comes, how many ships are there? So, on board ship, we have got something, a tracking device. Nowadays, you have tracking device everywhere. So this is a snapshot of the position of the ships as per the tracking device for a particular second. Right. So as of 2018, there were 60,000 registered ships in the world. Okay. So you don't see them when you see on land, but they are all over the place, all over the oceans, and they are doing a very, very silent. So that is about your water ships. What is how big are they and all. So on merchant ships, we have 2 departments. Generally 2 departments. We are not talking about passenger ships. We are not talking about cruise ships. Those are for entertainment purpose. Of course, there are job opportunities there also, but that's a different subject altogether. So on a merchant ship, we have got a navigating department, or we also call it a deck department, or we have an engine department. This engine department and the deck department, they are the main 2 departments of a merchant ship. So I'll see one by one, what do people do there and all these things. So for the navigation department, the duties is, the first thing is to navigate the ship. Navigate the ship means it's the art of taking the ship from one place to another, or you can say science of taking the ship from one place to another without causing any accidents, right, safely in the minimum possible time. Then as a deck officer or a navigating officer, you are also in charge of supervising the cargo loading and unloading and carrying operations. It comes under the responsibility of the deck department. So when the ship is at port, though the ship is not moving, don't think that you are off duty. You will have to supervise loading, unloading of cargo. Also, you have to and supervise the maintenance of the ship's hull and the decks. These are all made of steel, so they can get rusted. So they have to be painted, and there are moving machineries which are to be greased and all. So there are people to work on them. There are machineries to help you, but as an officer, you will have to supervise the maintenance. And finally, when you become a captain, you have to also supervise the ship's business. So the business is fixed by the owners, but you are the owner's representative on the ship. So a lot of responsibility comes to the captain from that angle also. So you have to supervise the ship's business. Coming to the some pictures of how the ship's navigating bridge nowadays looks. It has become very, very high tech. When I started sailing, we had maybe 1/10 of these equipments. It was mostly metal things. We had a radar, we had a steering, minimum things which are required. Nowadays, all informations are at your fingertips, and all satellite connectivity is there. things have become much more high-tech, at the same time reliable. And if you make a mistake, the machine reminds you. Of course, you're not supposed to make mistakes. Right? This is how a ship looks like when she is in a port. On my right-hand side, we have a container ship. So we can see those cranes. These are called gantry cranes. They load and discharge cargo in the port. On the left-hand side is a bulk carrier. And you can see there is a small bucket which is coming from the top. It is called a grab. So this ship has brought some cargo, maybe coal or iron ore, maybe, and it is discharging that cargo in the port. So when the ship is in port, as a deck officer, you will have to supervise that operation also to ensure that everything is happening safely. Coming to the engine department, there are about 5 to 6 marine engineers on board as well, of different ranks. Their main job is to take care of operation and maintenance of a ship's machineries. The ship's engine room looks like a small factory, I tell you. You know, you have everything, right from a huge engine, you know, which can drive you can imagine 4 lakh tons of a ship. It has to be moved. So what can be the size of the engine? Just to give you an idea, you know, the height of an average size engine can be as good as a 2 to 3 story building. You won't believe such a big thing. And there are so many associated machineries. There are pumps, there are generators, there are oil purifiers, there are boilers, and so many things. As a chief engineer, you also have to keep a track of the fuel consumption, because that's the most important expenses a ship incur when it is trading. This is how the ship's engine room looks like. On the left-hand side picture, what you can see is the top part of the engine. I can tell you that this is about 1/4 of the size. The remaining 3/4 are below that deck where the people are standing. So you can imagine how high are they. On the right-hand side picture is the control room for the machineries. So again, it has become very high-tech with a lot of computers. Most of the engines are electronically controlled. They are electronically sensed also. There are a lot of sensors being put on the engine. So again, olden days, everything was manual, but nowadays things have become really high-tech. Some more pictures of the engine room. You can see it's neat and clean, absolutely. You know, we use about 30 to 40 tons of heavy fuel oil on the engine. It's black in color, but you can see the trace of oil. So everything is spick and span, and ship's crew ensure that the engine room, or by engine room, the entire ship is kept neat and clean, because cleanliness is next to godliness. And of course that, you know, keeps the accidents away. Right. So coming to the next slide, how many people are there on the ship? So on my left-hand side right now, I'm showing you that your career starts in the navigating department as a deck cadet. Then at various stages, there are exams. Exams are conducted by the Government of India, no private institutes here, because Government of India gives you a license to operate a ship. It is like a driving license, or you can say a pilot's license, but it is not so easy like how to get your driving license, of course. You know, the exams are tough, but then people clear them also, and people go up the rank. So if you join as a deck cadet, some question may be coming to your mind that how long it will take to be a captain. Well, present day, if you join as a deck cadet today, it takes about, you know, something 12 to 14 years to be a master. In between, there are exams. You have to clear the exams, and it is not that you will be on the ship for 14 long years. You will be coming on vacation also in between. So junior navigating officer, then third navigating officer, then second navigating officer, then chief officer, and then master. On the engine side, you have similar ranks. You join as a trainee engineer in the beginning, then fifth, fourth, third, second, and chief. There is an electrotechnical officer also on board. He's a unique person because he is the only electrical person on board. He also belongs to the engine department. So here also, between ranks, you have exams being conducted, and again, it takes about maybe 10 to 14 years, depending upon your smartness, to be a chief engineer, right? Good. What are the highlights of this career? Well, this job takes you to exotic places as a part of your career. So, you know, you might ask your IT friend might tell you that he's going to Australia or Europe or US, but no IT job takes you to Chile, okay, or to Argentina or through the Magellan Straits. Not possible, because there is no IT jobs there. This career takes you everywhere around the world, by the time you end, say about, if you want to, I sailed about for 14 years. So I can say at the end of my 14 years, I have been to almost all the land masses in the world, right? So it comes free of cost. It's a part of your job. You have to go, right? And when you go there, you get some time to move around in those places. Of course, not that you go on a tour, but maybe some few hours to land on shore and look at the place and all. Since you will be earning your salaries away from India, and it will be in foreign currencies, mostly in US dollar or euros. And in that case, if you can spend more than 186 days, that is exactly half of 1 year, 186 days outside India, then whatever you earn in foreign currency becomes tax free. Okay, that basically you attain the NRI status for that particular year. Most of the seafarers, they attain this because 6 months out of 12 months is not a big issue, and therefore your salary becomes tax free. And since these are all foreign companies, most of the foreign companies, they employ from India. There are Indian companies also, but it is same for all. If you earn it outside India, then adventure, yes. Job satisfaction, that is the biggest thing, because you'll be working with your own hands. Remember, even the captain, the chief engineer also wear a working suit, during the day, and they work on their own hands, because you have only 22 people. You cannot say that I will sit in my office and I will give directions from there. If required, you will have to change over to your working suit and come and work. So as a chief engineer, also your hands may be dirty. But we do not look at that from that point of view. We look it at as a job satisfaction. Right? Coming to, I'll just hurry up a bit because I think I have a little time to go. After 12th, you have two courses. There is a DNS course for joining the nautical science department, and the engineering department, you have a BTech marine engineering. Of course, for mechanical engineering, there is a GME course, but since most of you are from 12th standard, so I kept it light. I will tell you about these two courses. So DNS course, Diploma in Nautical Science course, is total is about for 2 semesters, which you will have to do it in an institute which is approved by the Indian Maritime University and the Director General of Shipping. So it's a 1-year course, 1 and 2 semesters. After that, the institute must arrange for a on-board training period of 18 months. That becomes 3rd, 4th, and 5th semester. So in our institute, we have our own shipping company. So that is the Asian. I will tell you about that later. After that, when you come back, you have a 6-month preparatory course, which are conducted again by some institute. We consider that as a 6th semester. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your diploma gets converted into a degree. You become a degree holder, BSc Nautical Science, because any degree is of 6 semesters, BSc degree. And you also have to appear for second mate exam with the Director General of Shipping at that time, and you become a 3rd officer on the board. So that is the junior most officer on the ship. Coming to for the marine engineers, it is like any other BTech course. It is of 8 semesters. So all the 8 semesters you have to study at SIMS, the institute, any institute of course, and get a BTech marine engineering degree. Then the institute must arrange for you a 6 months of cadetship on any ship. So we arrange that with our own company. After you come back for 6 months, after 6 months of sailing, you can appear for a class 4 exam, again with the Director General of Shipping, and you get a license to sail as a 4th engineer. So that is the BTech course. What we look for during the selection, you should have a good grip on applied science and maths. Our interviewers from most of the institutes, they always look for your applied knowledge, not the theoretical knowledge. So you must have a good applied knowledge on science and maths. You should have a reasonably good standard of spoken and written English. You don't have to be a Shakespeare, but you should be at ease with English. And this is for engineers, for the graduates, so I kept it off. And officer-like qualities, I believe my next speaker, Group Captain Nitin, will highlight it more. You must be a very, very positive person, always can-do type. Should not look for excuses on how our job cannot be done. In fact, you should look for opportunities that how it can be done. And you should be motivated to work with your own hands. It is not an office job. Every time there is work, you have to come out and do the job. So you cannot say 5 o'clock, okay, I'm going. No, not possible. Because only 22 people, ship has to run, and ship does not have a Saturday, Sunday, so everybody has to work. For DNS and BTech, this is the eligibility criteria. I will not talk about these two because these are for graduates. So eligibility criteria is 17 to 20 years after 12th for both. For both, you should have a minimum PCM of 60%. Physics and maths should be minimum of 50%. This is only our institute's requirement, physics and maths. Physics plus maths should be 60% and above. Again, this is only our institute's requirement. And English should be more than 50%. This is a government requirement. So this PCM 60% and English 50% is a government requirement. In between these three is our own institute's requirement. For DNS, eyesight is very important for a deck officer. So 6/6 in the good eye, and the other eye can have maximum 6/9, but no color blindness. As a marine engineer, you can wear specs, and these are the limits of your eye, 6/12 and 6/12. Coming to this is a very, very indicative salary. Again, I will run through quickly. As a deck engineer officer, you get around $250 to $300. As a junior engineer, you get about $650 to $750. This is a stipend. This is a kind of a help to start your this thing. Then as you go up the rank, you can see the salary is increasing. All these are in dollars, and this is the indicative figure in, rupees, Indian rupees. But mind it, these are only estimate. It depends from company to company. Your experience also matters. So by the time you become a chief captain, it goes up to, if you're a very experienced math master or chief engineer, it can go up to $15,000 as of today. Right. This is our institute. It is in Lonavala. It is again a very modern institute with very, very modern facilities. And we have offices all over the world. We have international offices in Singapore, Houston, Athens, and Rotterdam. This is the office of the shipping company. And in India, we have Mumbai, Delhi, Chandigarh, Chennai, Cochin, Kolkata, and Patna. And of course, the Lonavala is the institute. And the selection procedure is like you have to visit the website samudra.com, SAMUNDRA, samudra.com. And there is an online registration followed by an online examination. Then there is an interview. Nowadays, the interview is also online because we cannot be physically present in front of one another. Then there is a psychometric test. We call it a 16 personality factor test. And then IMU, the Indian Maritime University, under which this course is affiliated, will conduct a common entrance test. But this year, the entrance test is not there. They have said that you just register with their website, in their website until up to 21st of August, and your merit list will be prepared based on your class 12th marks. Now, this is only for this year. Otherwise, other years, there is always a common entrance test. So this common entrance test is also important. Once you clear all those, we will ask you to go for a medical test with one of our approved doctors. And that's what, if you're selected, you have to pay the fees. I'm done with it. Thank you so much. I'll take your questions at the end. I think I overshot by 3 minutes. So let me pass it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was very informative. And so now let's move on to our third speaker of the day today. So the third speaker today is Captain Nitin Velde. He's a retired group captain from Indian Air Force. He has 23 years of service as a pilot and more than 5,500 hours of flying experience. He is a recipient of Gallantry Award by President of India for a life-saving mission. After opting for premature retirement, Captain Nitin is now settled in Pune. He is a facilitator and engages with corporates in behavioral training. He has special passion for oratory skills and loves interacting with people. So over to you, Captain.
You'd have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kiran. And it's indeed a great pleasure for me to be here with such a wonderful crowd this evening. So first of all, thank you very much, Rotary Club of Pune Smart City. It's a club which is very, very close to my heart, and I take real pride in saying that it's a wonderful, wonderful club. Excellent and exceptional initiatives over the last few years that they have been since inception. And this happens to be one of the most amazing initiatives I have seen in the recent past. So today I'm going to talk about the Indian Air Force, and I see a lot of questions coming on. So I'm going to try and answer a lot of questions. At the same time, I'm also going to speak of what I have in my mind to speak about. First and foremost, let me tell you that Indian Air Force is one of the three arms of the Indian Armed Forces. So Captain Subhendu spoke about the Merchant Navy. When we talk of the Navy per se, we are saying Indian Navy, Indian Army, and Indian Air Force. These are the three branches of what we call as the Indian Armed Forces. Mrs. Khare told us about what are generally the duties, the primary duty and the secondary duty. So, suffice to say at this moment that all the three services have their primary duties and secondary duties. I'm going to try and tell you first about the Air Force. Then I'll try and tell you what are the generic entry levels, and then I can take on some questions. So if you ask me about the Air Force, typically, the Air Force has got two kinds of cadre engagement. The first is what we call as the officer cadre. And within the officer cadre, you have male students and you have women officers and male officers. In the airmen, what we call equivalent of the Jawans in the army, at present in the Indian Air Force, you have only the males who are representing the Jawans or what we call as the airmen. Having said that, the Indian Air Force officer cadre has got different branches. We refer them, like the Army, Mrs. Khare told us that they refer as the arms. In the Indian Air Force, we refer the officers as various branches. One by one, if you were to look at the branches, the most important branch, finally the Air Force is there to safeguard your skies of this nation. If you have to safeguard the skies of this nation, you need aeroplanes. And if you have aeroplanes, you need pilots to fly them. So the flying branch is the most dominant, I would say, in terms of numbers, not in anything else. So it is comprising of various officers who are pilots, and the pilots are further divided into fighter pilots, transport pilots, and helicopter pilots. Like I am a helicopter pilot, so I predominantly flew helicopters in the Indian Air Force. This is about the flying branch. In addition to the flying branch, you have an engineering branch. What is the purpose of the engineering branch? It is to maintain all the flying assets and the non-flying assets of the Indian Air Force in the correct manner. Now, within the engineering branch, you have again sub-two branches. One is what we call as aeronautical mechanical and aeronautical electrical. Anybody who's an electronics engineer, an electrical engineer, a computer engineer, will more often than not, once he gets into the Air Force, will be allotted work which is essentially got to do a lot with his core engineering degree. But if you have been a mechanical or a product engineer, you will most probably get what is called as the aeronautical mechanical branch. So these are the two branches. Now coming to another branch. We have another branch called as logistics. Anything and everything that happens in the Indian Air Force, right from one safety pin to the Rafale aircraft, all the inductions, all the logistics management is done by this branch. It is called as a logistics branch of the Indian Air Force. In addition to that, we have something called as accounts branch. So the accounts branch is looking after, in like any other company, you would have the finance department. The accounts branch for the Indian Air Force is the finance department of the Indian Air Force, right from budgeting, payments, receipts, and all that. Then you have something called as an education branch. The education branch is made up of those officers who ensure that the Indian Air Force officers as well as airmen have got adequate exposure to various exams, various educational initiatives that the Air Force wants them to take. And then you have something called as an administration branch. Within the administration branch, you have first and foremost, you have somebody who's going to be in the air traffic control and controlling the aeroplanes, maintaining the runways, controlling the aeroplanes in and out. And you also have somebody called in the fighter controllers position. So if you recollect, the Balakot incident happened on the 26th of February last year. After that, Abhinandan went and got behind one F-16. And if you recollect, there was a lot of newspaper articles on a lady officer, a woman officer who was called as a fighter controller. And their job is to control the aeroplanes in such a manner that we can get the best advantageous situation when we are engaging with an enemy aircraft. So these are called as fighter controllers. Now these are roughly the branches of the Indian Air Force. Okay. Now coming to where all can you see women joining. The women today in the Indian Air Force is quite proud to say this fact that the Indian Air Force is one of the first services amongst the three to give what is called as a permanent commission. That means Indian Air Force lady officers can serve 20 years and beyond, like anybody of us. So they can become pilots, they can become accountant officers, they can become engineers, they can become education officers, they can become ATC officers. So there is no branch in the Indian Air Force which the women from any stream of graduation or otherwise cannot join, including becoming a fighter pilot. In the recent past, you would have heard that 3 women fighter pilots have joined the Indian Air Force and they are flying the MiG-21s presently. So this is as far as the the selection, or you can say the life or the branches of the Indian Air Force officers, or the women as well as the male officers. Now, how does one join Indian Air Force? And there were a lot of questions about doctors. So I'm going to answer the doctor's question as a joint question. What happens is, if you want to become doctors in the Indian Army, Navy, or Air Force, there are 2 or 3 ways of getting into it. The first way is, like you have the NDA after 12th, you have something called as a AFMC, Armed Forces Medical College, based in Pune. So all over India, when you have the NEET selection, like the normal medical college, you'll also appear for Air Force Armed Forces Medical College exam. They will do some interview and they will give you a MBBS degree after 4 years, and they will allot you different service. That means we have all studied together and become doctors. I can become an Air Force doctor, somebody else can become a naval doctor, and somebody else can become an army doctor. And thereafter, depending on your interest and specialization, you will be exposed to MD or MS or whatever it could be. So this is as far as how to become a doctor. Similarly, you will be having something called as a dental officer. And similarly, somebody asked a question on the chat box a little while earlier. How do you become veterinary officers? Within the Army only, not in the Air Force and Navy, you have what is called as a Remount and Veterinary Corps. So these are the officers who maintain the horses. Now, of course, when you want to maintain the horses, you will require specialist veterinary doctors. You have many milk farms, and the ration of the Army, and the Air Force, like Mrs. Khare was saying, is an entitled ration. So to maintain the ration supply, you need milk farms. So for all these, you require veterinary officers, and that is one entry for somebody who's already a veterinary doctor. For everybody else, I'm now going to tell you about how do you become an officer within the armed forces, roughly. The first entry is after 12th standard. So if a candidate has passed 12th standard, and here I'm only talking of male candidates, I'll tell about the women officers slightly later. If a candidate has passed be an SSB interview, and thereafter there'll be medicals, and subject to all conditions being met and passed, there'll be a merit list, and that particular candidate joins NDA. Assume that an NDA, a boy has joined NDA as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old after 12th, and during his NDA form, when he's filling up the form, he has given his first choice as Air Force. So within the NDA, he's going to be trained and called as an Air Force cadet. After 3 years of NDA, that particular young man passes out and joins what is called as the Air Force Academy. And in the Air Force Academy, for 1 year, he flies, for first 6 months, he flies an aeroplane by the name of Pilatus, is a training aircraft of the Indian Air Force. Having flown the Pilatus for 6 months, his instructors, number of vacancies, his aptitude and other things are assessed. And he is given a fighter branch or a transport branch or a helicopter branch. This happens after 6 months of his training. Then he further specializes in that. And after a total of 1 year of training at Air Force Academy, he becomes a flying officer of the Indian Air Force. This I told you about the Indian Air Force joining through NDA. Now there is another way of entering into the Air Force, the way I did it. So I was studying in Pune and I joined after graduation. How did I join? If you cannot make it to NDA, or if you haven't yet made up your mind to join the Air Force or the Army, what you can also do is you can finish your graduation and then appear for something called as Combined Defense Services exam. Now within the Combined Defense Services, again you will repeat the same sequence of preference, Army, Navy or Air Force, depending on your education and qualification, and you will appear for the serious written exam. Then you will appear for the SSB interview, the medical, and a combined list will be taken out and you will join the Air Force Academy. If you join the Air Force Academy as a pilot branch, that means what we call as a flying branch cadet, you will meet up the NDA guys. So from one side, you have the NDA guys who are doing their 3 years of service in NDA, and on the other side is a college graduate. Both of them meet at Air Force Academy. Now, this college graduate could be a flying branch, or this college graduate could be an engineer. This college graduate could be a what we call as accounts branch or education. So every cadet who goes into Air Force is definitely going to visit Air Force Academy for minimum 6 months. Having done that, Now the cadets of various branches go through various specialized training, and then they pass out, and each of the cadet of various branches gets commissioned in the Indian Air Force as a flying officer. This is the way the whole system of Air Force selection works. Now, if you're a woman officer, that means if you're a lady who wants to join the Air Force, unfortunately, till date, NDA doors are not open to lady officers or women candidates. So the way for girls to join armed forces is you have to finish your graduation. Thereafter, you have to apply for what is called as the Air Force Common Entrance Test, or for the Army, you have to apply for the OTA test, and for the Navy, you have to apply for the INA test. And depending on three services, there are various branches that are allotted to you, and you become a woman officer in that particular service. So this is about the way we would like the people to understand that there is a whole lot of bouquet of various methods of joining. For example, if you leave this thing that, okay, no, I don't want to join NT, for whatever reason, I'm not still made up my mind, no problem. You would like to get exposed through NCC maybe. So join NCC in your college, see what the life in the armed forces is going to be, and then make up your mind. Two things I'm just wanting to tell you here. Somebody asked about salary and somebody asked about, various things. An essential factor in what even Captain Subhendu said, and I totally am in awe of all the Merchant Navy captains. Army, Navy, Air Force, Merchant Navy, these are extremely thrilling and extremely exciting professions. So if you try to compare them, I've never compared the life in the armed forces with any other profession, because for me, it can not be comparable. You can only compare two things, which are absolutely either similar or assumed to be similar. But something which is entirely different in my mind is very difficult to compare. And there are three reasons why I would say that why they are different. First, the quality of life is a major parameter on which you have to look at armed forces service. And when I say quality of life, it is the entire organization, the way, the whole culture. So you don't have a career in the armed forces. You lead a life of being an armed forces officer. It's your life. It's not a 9 to 5 switch on, switch off, work-life balance. So there are slightly different parameters on which one would really want to become an armed forces officer. That's number one. Number two, the kind of thrill and the pride and the variation in your job that you get amongst the armed forces is unimaginable in any other service. I've done enough service. I've served for about 23 years in the Air Force. I've operated with the Army as well as the Navy, and I can give it to you that there is nothing parallel to the thrill, the kind of decisions you have to take. You're sitting in Siachen at minus 19 degrees temperature at 17,000 feet, and you have to lead them. And finally, we are all looking at people who can lead men into war. It could be a woman also now, but I'm just referring man as a holistic thing. So this is the second thing, that don't look for things which are parameters are slightly different. And the third important thing is that given the situation and what one wants to do, if you want to say, do you have it in you? This is the typical Navy Captain Subhendu also asked the same thing. What does it take to be a Merchant Navy guy? These are extremely thrilling professions, sitting in the high seas with 22 of his troops, 22 of his people, crew, and so many tons of ship. There's a huge amount of responsibility to take actions there and there. So the whole point of me telling you that is that you have to look at the parameter from a slightly different context and not compare this as a career to a career. So, when you look at a stream of armed forces, my only request to everybody who's attending, we are about 124 here and maybe some more people on the Facebook. My only request to you is keep the parameters slightly different, and you will find own answers coming as to how you must join. There is enough of material available on Google, on the Air Force side, on the Army side, on the naval side, as to what are the parameters or what are the educational qualifications. And somebody asked about adventure. What kind of adventurous life can you lead in the armed forces? Can you pursue sports? Of course you can pursue sports. Our present minister, the past minister, Colonel Rathore, he was a shooter from the Army who went on to become an Olympic silver medalist. So there's enough of there are expeditions to the Everest. There are cycling expeditions. So if you want to just lead a life of adventure, of course the Army or the Air Force is the best place to be. So is the Navy. So these are the things that I thought I would share with you. And the information available on each of the websites is extremely authentic. The best way is to go to the most authentic websites of the nic.in. So you get the best of information about the graduation. Mrs. Khare is going to later talk about, I think, How do you prepare for various interviews and things like that? So, I mean, I'm just looking at the chat box and requesting Manisha to come in and give me some questions so that we can make it a little bit more interactive.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. This was very informative. And I guess you have already answered many of the questions that were in the chat box right now through your talk right now. So basically the question that is being flashing up again and again when I'm going through this chat box is how to join NDA, then tell us more about NDA, you know. So would you just like to put it in some points for us, you know, very quick points, like, you know.
Let's say a candidate is there and he's made up. And again, I'm saying he for the sake of, I wish we are, time is going to not stop for us. There is going to be time when India is going to open for the ladies as well. So I'm not at all trying to be gender biased or non-inclusive. I'm just giving an example. Let's say a candidate, a boy says after 11th standard that I've made up my mind, I want to join India. So the October month, like he's in the 12th standard, he writes the NDA exam, for which the forms come in 2 to 3 months earlier. Where do they come? They come on employment exchange, they come through various sites, and he fills up the form. I'm talking of a month called as July. 11वीं खत्म हो गया, उस लड़के ने फॉर्म भर दिया, मुझे एनडीए जाना है, ये मेरे चॉइसेस है, एनडीए का फॉर्म उसने यूपीएससी भेज दिया, अक्टूबर महीने में उसकी एग्जाम रिटर्न होगी. And how do you prepare for it? Various classes are there in, to guide you. Various institutes are doing that. Enough of materials available. So the exam roughly is about 2 papers. One is a generic paper, one is a maths paper. So it's kind of integrated with your normal syllabus of 12. Having passed that exam, there is a merit list. So suppose, I'm just taking a wide example of 2 lakh लोगों ने appear किया. Now Army or Air Force cannot ask 2 lakh people to come for an interview. A certain percentage of that is a cutoff, and the rest of the people over the next 4 months, starting from somewhere like, let's say, November, December, January, February, over the next 4 months, they are called to various services selection board, which we can call in pure recruiting terms as your recruiting offices for wherever you go for interviews. And these boards are across the country. They start with, I'm saying Allahabad, Mysore, Bangalore, Varanasi, Gandhinagar. They're across the country, and they are a mix of Army, Navy, Air Force officers in those particular boards. So a candidate goes to that board on a period of 5 days, starting with a Monday up to a Friday. On a 5-day period, he's assessed for various things. He's assessed for his psychological, mindset. He's assessed for his team building things. How does he lead? And he's also assessed for what kind of personality does that individual have. Having said that, after the Friday, the results are out, and the word uses a particular candidate is recommended to go for medicals. I'm using the word not selected, recommended. The candidate who's recommended goes to a medical center. It could be IIM, it could be normal selection center if it's for the Army. Only for the Air Force, we have 2 selection centers for the medical. One is Institute of Aerospace Medicine, Bangalore, and Central Medical Establishment, Delhi. Ab candidate wahan pahunch gaya, jo bhi medical parameters hai. Some people are asking about eyesight. So eyesight also, I'm not in a position today to say what, because I'm not a qualified doctor. But I can just say that various parameters are there on color blindness, on short-sightedness, on myopic vision, and the result of the medical board is let out to the candidate. Okay, you have passed the medical standards. If the candidate has passed the medical standards, he comes back home, and now he's getting prepared for his 12th ka exam. Because roughly you are talking of, let's say, the February of the 12th exam aane wala hai, aur banda usme bhi pass ho gaya. Now he concentrates on 12th exam. He appears for his 12th normal HSC or CBSE exam. And once those results come out, if he gets selected for the NDA, that means the UPSC will tell the candidate, I am just roughly saying a month of, let's say, May, that you are selected for so-and-so NDA course commencing on the 17th of June, for example. They will check up at the back end, they will check up with HSC or CBSE or ICSE. As did candidate passed and got the minimum amount of percentage what is required. Having got a thumbs up at a back-end level from these boards, they will send you what is called joining instructions. Please report to Pune railway station on so-and-so date. You are selected, carry so-and-so, so-and-so. So this is roughly, so the candidate, whoever is going to wanting to join NDA has to start preparation almost 1 year early. अगले साल मुझे 12th पास होके जाना है, तो इस 11th के बाद मैंने फॉर्म भरने की प्रक्रिया स्टार्ट करके I have developed on my one by one, step by step I've gone. Notwithstanding the fact that when I'm concentrating on the NDA exam, at no stage can I ignore my basic 12. क्योंकि कई बार ये देखा गया है, a lot of times it happens that candidates pass entire whole thing for the armed forces, but unfortunately are not able to clear the 12th exam.
Oh. Okay.
Now this is about the 12th NDA. Should you just pick up this whole template and put it to your second year of college? So I have not got selected in the NDA for some reason. Okay, I have now finished my second year of college. I'm going into my third year of college, and it's a 3-year graduation program. I do the same template again. अगले साल मैं थर्ड ईयर कॉमर्स या थर्ड ईयर साइंस पास आउट होने वाला हूँ. अभी मैं सेकंड ईयर पास आउट हो गया हूँ. I pick up the same template and I just apply at similar timings. At October, I appear for, instead of NDA exam, I appear for Combined Defense Services exam. And in that, depending on my interest, I again tick mark whether I want to join Army, Navy, or Air Force. Again, the SSB, again the medical and individual calls. So roughly that's the idea. We have also got many other selection processes in terms of encouraging youth to join. There is a technical selection for the armed forces, what is called as a TES. In the Air Force, we are also wanting direct recruitment. That means you are an engineering college, the Air Force recruitment team will come and directly have an interview there itself, what is called as an Air Force combined admission test. Once basic interview is cleared, you'll go for SSB.
Okay. So there has been a lot of inquiry about TES. So can you just throw a little bit of light on TES a little bit more?
So what happened is, technical entry scheme is the one for the Army. Air Force is planning to do it, but it will take some time. What was to join after 12th NDA, but let's say no, I don't want to join NDA. I want to become either an engineer, or either want to become a signals officer. I want to become an EME officer within the Army. No problem. You join after 12th and become what is technical entry scheme of the Army. So we make you a super specialist right from 12th. Suffice to say at this moment, Manisha, that everywhere you go in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and I'm taking the liberty of saying it on behalf of the Merchant Navy. At every stage, there'll be a written test, there will be an interview, there will be medical. That much I can tell you, not going into details. That at every service that we are talking of today, Army, Navy, Air Force, 3-pronged approach will be there. And having said that, the ability of the candidate to keep upgrading his knowledge, again, the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Merchant Navy, you will have to keep seeking knowledge and continuously upgrading your knowledge.
Okay, so here again we have one very interesting question, that do we have job opportunities for nutritionists in Army?
So
or in
yeah, so there is somebody asked, there's a guy called as Rishikesh who's been asking whether a chef can join the Army.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is that other than science, that means other than, let's say, the technical part, if you're a graduate, so a nutritionist would be a graduate in something, BSc. Let's say he or she is a BSc nutritionist. So the moment you see nutritionist, that means you see on the ad BSc, you can join any of the jobs that are offered as an officer in the armed forces. 12th में अगर आपने BSc के पहले अगर आपने 12th science math किया है और आप BSc nutrition बने हो, तो women or men can join Indian Air Force as pilots.
Okay.
So there is no specific requirement of the armed forces to have nutritionist or chefs. So you will get into the general cadre and you can select your branch, whether you want to become an administrative officer or you want to become a pilot, depending on your 12th qualifications.
Okay. And then there's a lot of questions coming up on how can girls join, and of course, what is the cutoff marks, for joining the NDA, like for the 12th standard. So I think, yeah.
One thing is, for the girls, the best part is that it is going to be an amazing opportunity. And let me tell you honestly, I have been lucky to visit a certain few air forces and armed forces around the world. Contrary to the normal belief, the women officers in the armed forces are extremely capable. They're extremely encouraged by all the services to take on jobs, and lead from the front. You just saw one Captain Shergill. If you saw this year's Republic Day parade, the Army contingent was led by one Captain Shergill. The Air Force has been doing this, so I'm not going to go into the details of whether Air Force or Army, but for women across the country, my request to you is, please go on different sites, read up about more on that. There is no more going to be a division between Army, Navy, Air Force, or women and male officers.
Okay.
Certain administrative things will continue for some time, till the time the administration rises up to the occasion. That's my first answer.
Okay.
And the second one you were saying was what about?
Actually, they also want to know what is the percentage, like in 12th standard, what is the cutoff?
So for all these services, I'm again repeating the template for, let's say, 12, and now I'm repeating the template for graduation. There is a certain cutoff percentage. Okay. If you achieve a certain percentage of cutoff, you're at least in the race. ये पूरा का पूरा selection process हम लोगों को समझना है, is a subjective selection process. अगर 200 लोग recommend हो जाते हैं, written pass हो गए, SSB ने recommend किया, medical ने recommend किया 200 लोगों को, लेकिन एयरफोर्स में वैकेंसी सिर्फ 100 है। आपके जो एसएसबी के अंदर आपको जो मार्क्स मिलते हैं और आपके रिटर्न के अंदर जो आपको मार्क्स मिलते हैं, उन दोनों की टोटल हो जाएगी, एंड फर्स्ट 100 will be taken.
Okay,
So
okay.
it is not that if I clear everything, there are many candidates who unfortunately are not aware that they clear everything till the last day, they don't get a call letter.
Okay.
And then there are certain misconceptions about why a call letter comes to only certain people. It's the first 100 who will be asked, assuming that only 100 vacancies are there.
So there's a very interesting question from Nalin Iyer. I want to become a fighter pilot. What additional requirements is required?
Nothing. You have to think like a fighter pilot. What else?
Okay, so that's your
what I'm
answer.
saying is, no. What I'm saying is, Nalin, a very good, important question. What I'm saying is that to become a fighter pilot, absolutely, it's possible. The only, unfortunately, the one of the medical problems is pilots cannot be colorblind and pilots cannot wear specs. Unfortunately, if you are into these two spectrums, I'm a bit afraid that even to become a pilot is a challenge in the Indian Air Force. And once you join the Indian Air Force, if you are medically fit, and depending on your aptitude, depending on the requirement, depending on what your instructor assists you on, your skill set, if you have it in you, you will definitely can become a fighter pilot, no doubt about it.
Okay. And so can you throw some light on AFCAT exams? That's I mean, AFCAT. I'm not aware of the full form of this, but if you can just tell us a little bit.
Air Force Common Admission Test, AFCAT.
Okay.
So this is a test which the Air Force has said, like something like, let's go to different colleges. Let's invite engineering branch people. Let us give them a quick mock test at the college level itself. If so many, 100 people apply from, let's say, COEP Pune, let's say, okay, this is a cutoff, 50 of you are invited for the SSB.
Right.
So this is over and above the UPSC guided. It is an Air Force held exam, Air Force Common Admission Test, AFCAT.
Okay. Fine. So that's it. Okay. And then there's one question which has come, that will there be some reduction of training if a soldier is planning to take up a sport which is not in Olympics, like cricket, etc.?
So to answer this question, the armed forces will definitely encourage people who are exemplary in whichever field that they are, over and above. But as far as training goes, as far as the other things go, there is no entry, there is no sports quota in the army, because the armed forces per se, the basic job is to create leaders if you are going to be officers, and the basic job is to create soldiers if you're going to join as any other cadre. So essentially, there is no quota system based on anything. It could be, you could be a great artist, you could be a great sportsman, but for your induction, there is no quota.
So, like this question come in Marathi, that Maji Mulgi, I mean, I hope you understand Marathi.
So yeah, of course. Yeah.
Maji Mulgi 12वी पास झाल्यावर कोणत्या फील्ड मध्ये ऍप्लिकेशन करू शकते?
So आत्ताच्या घडीला, I'm going to answer in Marathi for the gentleman or the lady who's asked this question. आत्ताच्या घडीला 12वी नंतर मुलींना आर्म फोर्सेस मध्ये एकच गोष्ट करता येईल. माझं असं एक, my suggestion is like this, त्या मुलींनी NCC नावाचं जी एक ऑर्गनायझेशन आहे ती जॉईन करावी. त्याच्यामध्ये खूप चांगल्या प्रकारे त्यांना मुलींना आर्मी, एअरफोर्स, नेव्ही या काही त्यांना आवडत असेल त्याचं एक्सपोजर मिळतं. इट इज लाईक अ सेमी सोल्जर्स लाईफ. खूप चांगला त्याचा एक्सपोजर मिळेल. अँड फॉर दोज 3 years, टुडे दी country is not ready to have a training academy for girls after 12th. We don't know what's going to happen in the near future. त्या मुलींनी 12वी नंतर 3 वर्ष NCC सारख्या ऑर्गनायझेशन मध्ये काम करून तिथलं एक्सपोजर घेऊन आपल्या BSc or whatever त्यांना जॉईन करायचं त्याची तयारीमध्ये लागावं, and then definitely they can get into it.
Okay, and there's a question which is there. A program called Tour of Duty was going to start. Is it also for girls?
So I'm not, I would be very conscious to say whether Tour of Duty हा concept कधी येणार आहे. My sense is I'm not an expert in that field. आणि येणार आहे की नाही. But Tour of Duty मध्ये ज्या गोष्टी सांगितल्यात, माझं एकच म्हणणं आहे, just about a minute to go for me. माझं एकच म्हणणं आहे to all the candidates and their parents who are attending this webinar, that if you want to join the armed forces, you can get the exposure of being in the armed forces in many other fields. You know that. So Tour of Duty is a concept. So if you understand the concept of Tour of Duty is to make everybody imagine what a soldier's life would be. And to lead a soldier's life, what do you need to do? You need to, follow the rules, follow the regulations, discipline, go for a jog, get up in the morning. You can always do that even without being in the Tour of Duty. So if you do this as any young person of this country, my urge is that whether you plan to join the armed forces or no is your entirely, a decision, and you must aspire to join the armed forces. But the preparation can be just to follow the basics of being a soldier. Be a good citizen first to start with.
Okay. So this
I
is
would just say
one.
that.
Yeah. But before you leave, so there's one very important question that has come up. It says how to become an ATC officer.
So you join the so if you're you join the administration branch of the Indian Air Force. The first 6 months you get trained in the Air Force Academy. The second 6 months you become a specialist kind of thing, and then you pass out and you are called as Flying Officer Nitin Velde from Admin ATC branch. Then you go to what is we call our ATC Officers Specialized Training Academy or training course in Hyderabad, and then you understand the nuances of how do you control aircraft, how do you control the airspace. And from there on, the service takes you to, either become a fighter controller or radar operator. So ATC is basically an administrative branch.
Okay, okay. So thank you, sir. That has really been very, very helpful. And sorry that you had to rush through and we had to.
Thank you. My apologies for leaving the session, and my absolute gratitude to Rotary Club of Pune Smart City, and my compliments to Mrs. Khare as well as Captain Shubhendru for being on the panel, and I really liked it, and I hope that we can take this forward. Thank you so much. I have to leave. I'm so sorry.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you so much.
So
here we will be now going to the other two speakers to answer a few questions which are there. We still have 15 minutes to take up the questions. So I would like to go to you, Mrs. Khare, that many questions have been coming, that options for girls to join army after 10th. So could you just, kind of tell us something more about it?
For girls, it is after 12th.
10th is what they're asking, after 10th.
After 10th, at present, there is nothing.
Okay, okay. So there's nothing that can be done after 10th. Okay, so 12th is a must, right?
12th is a must. They can join AFMC for MBBS or for BSc nursing, or after graduation, they can join.
Okay, okay. And is there any age limit to join any of these services? No, there is no age limit. Okay.
Different core has got different age limit.
Okay, and there's another question which has come from Vibhor. He says, how to join the arms and ammunition manufacturing in Hindustan Aeronautics? Okay, and is Mr. Captain Hathi, can you take up this question in case if you are aware of this?
Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is that how to join the arms and ammunition manufacturing like Hindustan Aeronautics, etc.
No, ma'am. It's not my area, so I'm not very much aware of it.
Okay, not a problem, not a problem. So these are few very different questions that were coming up. So I was just trying to take. And I would like to request Shilpa ma'am that if you can just, like what Captain Velde did, can we, because these questions are repetitive, that my daughter has done 12th, my son has done passed with those who marks. So can you just give a more little brief about how to go to the join the NDA, or what is the cutoff and what all, I know Captain Velde has thrown light on it, but we would like to hear it from you also in case.
Yeah, what Captain Velde has said for joining NDA, that those who are seeking class 11, they can start from class 11, the preparation for NDA. They can go for the written exam, and by the time their 12th exam is, they're approaching the 12th exam. Before that only they will be, seeing the interview. But at the same time, even if you passed your NDA exam, if you have passed the interview, but if your 12th exam marks, the cutoff percentage, what 60%, what he had said, if that is not met up, if you are not passed class 12, then that candidate cannot join you. Even past that.
Yeah, because there is a question that somebody's got 55%, so it's they are not eligible, right? Is what you're saying? No, 60% is your cutoff, right? After the 12th, right? And then
branch, the cutoff percentage is clearly mentioned. You have to go.
For Indian Army is specifically they are asking. So Indian Army, I think, is it 60%? Okay, okay. So then there was this question. What type of questions are asked in the entrance exams? I mean, I've been getting those kind of questions quite a lot, like what type of questions are asked in the entrance exams? Like we have these entrance exams, right?
India,
so, yeah, India exams, yeah.
Basically, 12th level science, maths is asked, and these are all, and English, general English. And it is all general question, what you study up till 12th standard.
Okay, all are general questions. Yeah. Okay.
And there are certain books which are available in the market. Some institution, what Captain Velde has said,
Mhm.
They have said that there are certain institutions where you can join and you can, take up that course and prepare for
Okay, this is a very interesting question. Any one of you can take it, of course. If you join army, is the posting at the border compulsory?
Yes, of course. That is organized. So one posting if you get peace station, another posting you'll get border, because see today who are giving duty on the borders, they also need their family time. They also need some peace time, entertainment to look after their family, and also they will be coming to the peace station, and those who are in the peace station, they will be replacing them on the borders. So this is
Okay.
not.
Okay, so and there is this thing which has come. I think, Mr. Ati, you can take it. What is Naval Academy? Is the question.
Naval Academy is, I believe, it's a new academy in Kerala, and the naval officers. It's again purely for Indian Navy, not for Merchant Navy. After completion of NDA or after class 12, people who wishes to join Indian Navy will be taken to Naval Academy. The exam, the entrance is same as NDA, but those who opt for Indian Navy, they go to Naval Academy.
Okay, and
Am I
can
right,
you just
Silpa ma'am?
yeah, so can you just throw some light about how girls can join the Indian Navy? If you can little bit talk about that.
Again, Shilpa ma'am should be able to, because I can
Okay.
tell about the girls in Merchant Navy.
Okay, so ma'am, can you just address this question?
Which is given for men.
Boys.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And there's one question which has come: how to join NCC?
How to join NCC? There are different schools and colleges who has opt for NCC, and those school and institutions which has opt for NCC, you can give your willingness. Those who want to participate in that, they are there.
Okay.
Quota is given for different schools and colleges according to that students are selected.
Okay, okay. So that was one. Then there was a question where can a person who's done his B mechanical apply for this kind of a field like engineering?
Yes, yes, of course, why not?
Okay, okay. And the interesting question from Samruti says, are girls eligible for all the ranks as men in the army?
No, it is only lady officers. It's only lady officers. And for CMP, that is military police, that the Jawan category, the girls entry has started. One batch has already come out, and second batch is preparing for that.
Okay, and so you're saying that not the same ranks as the men, the women are not eligible for the same ranks as men in the army. Jawan, yeah.
Jawans, as a Jawans, in ladies were not there, or women candidates were not there, but just now they have started.
Okay, and there's another question which is there, that is, are any jobs for pharmacists is there a scope for pharmacists in?
Nothing normal.
Okay, okay, and so little bit, I would like to ask Shilpa ma'am about your husband since he's in the army. So about their mindset, your son also. So your mindset, their mindset. Can we have few words from you, like both of your?
When I got married, first of all, I was doing my engineering, and mine was a love marriage. So my husband told me, so if you marry an army personnel, so your career you would not be able to approach your career. So if you have to go for career, then we cannot get married, because my duties will be such that sometimes I'll be in the field station, sometimes I'll be somewhere else, I'm not with you. So then who will look after the family? Maybe old parents or kids. So somebody has to be at home. And that time when we got married, that time, online job and everything was not that much it was developed. Nowadays, girls are approaching. They are married army personnel, and they are getting their own career also. So there is not a problem. And I am into teaching since then. So I have no regrets that I always work for army schools. And I have one vision in mind that if my husband is serving in an institute, for the same institute, the personal children, I should be working for them. So no regrets regarding that. For my son, he was always focused and passionate about picking up job in army as his father. So though he was very much intelligent in his academics, he was selected in Vellore College for his engineering. He did 6 months. First semester he has done. He has gone for his SSB interview, got clear, and he has joined. He left that, and then he got commissioned in Indian Army. He's an engineering officer, but opted for artillery, which his father has commanded. So we both are very proud. And he has joined Indian Army from TES entry, that is 10+2 technical entry. So in that cutoff percentage was 80% in the PCM, and he did that well. And in Marathi it is said that Shivaji Janmala Yava, पण तो शेजारच्यांच्या घरी. But when me and my husband is a NCC commanding officer for last 3 postings. So consecutively, we are saying in the colleges and schools that you have to opt for defense services. So Shivaji आपल्या घरातही जन्माला यावा. तो आधी गेले मग सांगितले. So
that's very inspiring, and thank you for sharing your personal experience. There's a question over here which has come up. How is RAW for girls? And does RAW really exist? That was also a question that I had come through.
No, we are not aware.
Okay, so I think, yeah, then and then there is this question which has come that what is the basic things to join Indian Navy? So again, I think this is a repetitive question, but any one of you, Mr. Captain Halpi, or you can answer that. What is the basic to join Indian Navy?
As such, as Madam said, and even before Group Captain also said that there is nothing as any special requirement. If you want to go through the NDA route or the Naval Academy route, there is an UPSC which is conducted, and you clear the UPSC, and then once you clear the UPSC, the Service Selection Board, the SSB, you have to go through the SSB. It is in our days it was 3 days interview. I don't know now, maybe the same.
Okay.
And if you clear that, of course, then there is a merit list, and you have to wait for the, if you rank in the merit list within the requirement of the Navy, you join as an officer. And I believe same option is available after graduation also. You can do CDS and join the Indian Navy.
Okay, and sir, actually there were a few questions. Of course, Captain did answer those, but but we were talking about the people have been asking about the paychecks or the salaries, in merchant navy. So again, if you can just quickly throw.
Sure. Actually, again here, you see, Indian Navy, Indian Air Force, Indian Army, they protect us, and it is a government job. Right. So the salaries there will be as per the pay commission. But Merchant Navy is completely a privatized, private kind of industry. Here there are ship owners and there are employers who, employ, and their selection is not, of course, through any kind of government route. It is, they give advertisements. If you join Merchant Navy, you'll come to know there are various websites, various newspapers where Merchant Navy vacancies, they come up. And we have something called Seamen's Club all over the country. Even in the Seamen's Clubs also, they put up advertisement for employments for various ranks. And they have their own selection process where you have to prove that you are worth for their companies. And salaries, as I told you during the presentation, as a cadet, it starts from about $250 for a day cadet, because you have done only 1 year after class 12. And for engineers, because they have your full degree, so it starts from $650, but that is only a stipend. It is just a help to you so that you can have some money, because after completing your training, you have to go for exams, and these exams are, and the specialized courses are a little costly. So the companies ensures that you have enough funds at the end of your training so that you can take up these exams on your own. You don't have to ask your father and all. Okay. And once you become an officer, by clearing Government of India examination. Same like a pilot of aircraft, he has got a license which is issued by Government of India, but it is accepted all over the world. Only then he can take a plane everywhere in the world. Same for us. So our licenses are issued by Government of India. So you have to sit for exams with them. Okay. We call them certificate of competency. So normally these exams have a very high passing percentage. It's around 70% to 80% some subjects, because it is like a switch. Either you are competent or you are not competent. There is no age bar for clearing the exams. I mean, even if you fail 10 times, there is also always an 11th time. So if you're smart enough, you can progress in your career fast, and then you can earn more dollars. So as of now, as I told you in the slides, the payment is quite good. And if you can spend more than 6 months outside India, it will get tax exempt.
Thank you. That was really helpul. Shilpa, this question I think is for you. There's a question saying, ma'am, I wear specs of 0.25 numbers. So can I join army?
Yeah, there is no problem.
in that there is no problem. Okay, okay. And okay, sir, this is for you. Captain, is there a lot of competition in merchant navy? Is a question that has just come.
Yes, actually, I overshot my presentation 3 minutes, so I could not tell you few points to which I wanted to say. Because this industry is quite lucrative, their salaries are good and all. So wherever this kind of thing happens, no, there'll be always some fraud things going on. So candidate must be very careful in this.
Okay.
It is like each company, when he employs any officer or a cadet, they take interview, they have a selection procedure, and only they absorb you. Because as even group captain was saying, this is a job where you need to take responsibilities. You have to be competent. So
Okay.
a shipping company will never take somebody who has come through a wrong route, paying bribes to somebody and all. So even if you're approached by somebody, give me 2 lakh rupees, I'll get you a job, just ignore him because it is not possible for him. Impossible for him. So though it is a private company, you have to go by their selection process and only then get selected. Even for institutes also, when you choose your institutes, where should I study? Because all the institutes are also private institutes. The Director General of Shipping maintains a website called dgshipping.gov.in. You must go there. There is a list of institutes which are approved by the DG Shipping. And DG Shipping conducts audits of our institutes every year. And based on the audit report, they give a ranking. So this audit report, this audit conducted basically 50% of the audit point comes from placement.
Okay.
So if a institute, this is a specialized field where you spend a lot of money for studies. Unless you have a placement, this means nothing for the candidate. So DG Shipping is very, very strict on the placement aspects. So you must choose your institutes well. You must go to the DG Shipping site and see which all institutes are approved. And only then you must start your career.
Okay. So ma'am, this question is for you, Shilpa ma'am. Which branches are allotted after successful selection in CDS exam?
Merit, see, they ask you initially what are your choices. So you have to give
Okay.
number 3 and as per your merit, the branches are allotted.
Okay. And can a Air Force pilot become a commercial pilot? Is a question that has come up.
Later on, you have to, he has to appear for that commercial pilot exam. And
Okay.
for flying hours, he has to leave the Air Force, or for example, if the person is pilot for Army Aviation, like my husband is an Army Aviation pilot.
Yeah.
So if he has to apply tomorrow, so he has to complete the number of flying hours, and plus he has to opt for commercial pilot license. He has to undergo that particular training for some time, and then once he gets the license, he can definitely fly.
Okay. Then there's another question which has come after the NDA written test. There is interview. Can you just throw some light on the interview part?
SSB interview. Just a moment. Can you show that slide? The last slide, please.
Kiran? The slides are with Kiran, right? Kiran, can you just show the last slide? Yeah, there is this question which has come up. Okay, what is regarding the interviews?
Just a second.
After the thank you slide, I think.
Yeah, after the thank you,
It is the last slide. Yeah, after the thank you slide, I think.
This one?
Yes. This is the service selection board that is called SSB. That is intelligent test, picture perception test. The picture is shown, and within a given time you have to write something about that picture, story about that picture. Then there is a group discussion. See, some individual they can speak when they are alone, but in the group, keeping that group, what you can say, unity, or that feeling of group oneness. So how can you discuss that? So you are examined in that. Then word association test. So one letter is given and you have to associate a word on that. Then thematic appreciation test. That is a psychological test basically. Then situation reaction test. The situations are given and then the questions are put. Okay, how will you behave? Okay. Then situation lecture. You are given a topic and you have to speak on that topic. Then individual. Just a moment. I can't read this. Then individual or group obstacle. Then interview, for 5 days. After once you go through all this, then there is an interview for 5 days. And this entire thing is called assessment.
Okay, okay, fine. So this entire thing is an SSB test. Okay, okay, fine. So, and there's another question which has come up. Can a PCB student become a pilot? That is, I think, PCB, I think it must be physics, chemistry, biology, I guess. Yeah, can become a pilot. Can a,
I think maths is a must.
Yes.
maths is must, or you?
One can become, like I think Captain Welde had said, Group Captain Welde has said that you pursue any qualification, but if you have decided I want to become a pilot and you have applied and you have, got into the merit list, you can still.
Okay. And can anyone, I mean, any two of you can just put some insight on Short Service Commission in Air Force, if you can just talk about it a little bit. Is that
Commission in any of the field? Initially, it used to be 7 years and plus 4 years. 7 and 7. That's 7 years and plus 7-year extension. You can get it. Nowadays, it is 10 years and then till 14 years. And then you have to apply. If you want to get the permanent commission, then you have to apply after 10 years. And once you apply, if the vacancy is there, and if you meet the criteria, your request is accepted. And that's
Okay.
how you can become permanent commission. Or you get 4-year extension and then you are, out of the service.
okay? And then there's a question which says that tell about account in Air Force, like if there's an accounting department or something. I think that is the question that has come up. So anybody of you can just throw some light on that.
I don't have any idea about this.
And then this very interesting. Can commerce student go for Air Force?
Yes.
Admin part they can go.
Admin part can be done, right? Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Okay. So I think we are already there. It's already 7:40, and we are already I've answered maximum numbers of questions which are there, and the ones which we actually have left out will be answered on the email to these participants which are there. But I think they were mainly very common questions. 90% of them, all the questions are being covered. But in case if we have left out anything due to the time constraint, we will be answering these questions on the email later on to the participants. And before we, end the session, there is a small announcement that I would like to make for the participants that we are, there's an upcoming events which are going to happen. That is on 7th of August at 7:30. We're going to have Colonel Srirang Khare. He's going to talk about on the topic in Army that you don't know. So we will be sending the flyers to all the participants here. You are welcome to attend. And yes, there is a Zoom meeting ID also, which is over here. So you can take a screenshot. We'll be talking about the 1971 war. And on 28th August, we have Group Captain retired. They will be talking about the 1988 airstrike. So these are the few upcoming sessions which are there. So the participants who are actually interested in joining and going ahead after today's session, we would request you to join these sessions so that you will get a more insight, a first-hand insight from these excellent panel of speakers that we have lined up for the next 3 sessions which are upcoming. So that is it for today. So these are the sessions that announcement that had to be made. And I would like to really thank our panelists today. So Mrs. Khare, thank you very much. It was very, very informative. And Captain Healthy, thank you very much for taking out the time and giving us such an informative session and enlightening and kind of spreading the knowledge about this area where I